woman. That same principle applies to women also. It's better for a woman not to touch a man. The unmarried stage seems to be a greater, more virtuous stage than the married state. Otherwise, Paul won't say that. It's better not to touch a woman. You read that verse in 1 Corinthians? Yes. They asked the question to Paul, Paul, what do you think about celibacy? So Paul gave his humble opinion, sincere opinion. Now concerning the things whereof he wrote unto me, it's good for a man not to touch a woman. It's good for a man not to touch a woman. It's good for a woman not to touch a man. So every person has to decide for himself or herself whether it is God's will for that person to marry or to remain single and serve the Lord. Somehow in our society, the society has determined 1 Corinthians 7 verse 1. Somehow the society has decided God's will for everybody is to marry. As soon as you hit certain age, then you should be thinking about marriage. But Bible doesn't say that. So how will you decide whether it is God's will for you to marry or not?
The loneliness.
The loneliness, right. Well, actually, a little more firm answer I will say, because sometimes the loneliness is difficult to define. So more objective is, verse 2 says, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. And then coming down, it says, it's better to marry than to burn. Where was that?
9.
Verse 9, yes. It is better to marry than to burn. What we're saying is, Paul saying is this: if you have this burning need of marriage, sexual feeling, if you are a man with sexual feeling, it is God's will for you to marry, because there is only one way to satisfy that, that is by marriage. If you happen to be a person, man or woman, have no sexual need, no such feelings, you see a woman, you see a man, have no feeling at all. It doesn't. It's almost like you're looking at a stone. God expects that, that man has feelings towards women, and women have feelings towards man. But there is a limit, so that if you cannot contain, then marriage is the only. Feelings come, feelings go, but you don't think about, the wrong part of the feelings, fulfilling adultery and all those things. You don't think about it. That is lust. You don't lust. Thoughts come there. It's like hunger, but you don't think about stealing food. Hunger is there. Hunger is nothing wrong. That is a very, sinless passion. Same way, sex feelings there, nothing wrong in it. That's a very legitimate, biological need. But when you think in terms with other things of satisfying it, illegitimately outside marriage, then you are thinking the wrong thing. So I ask the question, you have the genuine feelings of sexual feelings, needs? No, I never felt it. Then don't marry. Don't think about marriage. It's not time. You can marry any time you have that feeling. Of course, you have to find a partner, because at certain age, after passing certain age, you may not be able to easily find it.
Does it apply to man and woman?
Yes, it applies to man and woman. Yes, woman should not be given in marriage if she doesn't have a need for it. Why Paul says in this chapter itself, says there are eunuchs that are made for the kingdom of God. There are men who have good control over the passions, and it doesn't really come to a state where they say that I have to marry, otherwise there is possibility for me to commit sin. No, it doesn't. So I decided I will. Anybody who actually decide to remain single, it will be a decision to serve the Lord. Because the Bible says the unmarried has only to please God. So if you're single, then you have to please only God. You don't have to please your father and mother after a certain time. After you move from your parents' responsibility, from their roof, you working to supply yourself, you're not under any responsibility to please your parents. You can support your parents and all that, pray for your parents, and that's different. But you don't have to please your parents by obeying, do everything they say, no. But you have to please God. So this is one great question. How do I know whether it is God's will for me to marry? Well, you have feelings, yes. You have feelings, yes. Man or woman have feelings, yes. Have those feelings grown to some extent where you find it now a little more difficult to contain it? Well, God is telling, get married. Get married. If you don't feel that one, let nobody force you to marry. You simply say, I don't have a need, I want to serve my God. I will remain single and serve the Lord. Don't worry about your age. Some people mature very early. Some people mature very late. Some people mature very early but marry very late. That's a danger. Because you are burning all the time with sense, with these feelings, and why walk with fire in your bosom? Proverbs also ask them, can a man carry this fire in the bosom? No, you go ahead, marry. God has established marriage. God has established marriage. You must go ahead, marry. That's certain people genetically are, not prone for sexual feelings as much as others. It's all the work of the hormones too, The hormones produce these changes. So some people, they don't have certain hormones for men, for women, and therefore these sexual feelings does never come. Somehow overproduction of hormones. You don't know, sometimes back a sister from our, one of the churches called and said, I have a serious problem, brother, you are the only one I could go to. I have went so many medical doctors also, I couldn't find a solution. I said, what is it? She was taking care of a 3-year-old boy, her relation. This 3-year-old boy had the normal sexual passion of a 15-year-old boy. So he was doing things that he never expects. Anytime this child sees a woman, he goes and approach her and lift her clothes and this and that and do all things. And what to do? I have taken to many doctors. They say, that's his simple child playing and all that. He has every sign of a mature erection and everything is there. Said, go consult the doctor. It's a hormone problem. Certain glands are producing a lot of the male hormones. So finally taken to a doctor, said that's a problem, but we cannot do anything. If we do anything, he will go sterile because he is very young. So what do you do, how to handle, that's a question anyway. She gave the child back to her parents who were abroad, said we cannot take care of. So how the hormones work, sometimes we may wonder why certain people are this way. That's not an excuse, nobody can say that, Lord, my hormones are a little too much. You cannot say that, but the hormones play a role, definitely. Yes. Some women, again, this problem with the hormone problem, they're not very, sexual feelings are very, very less. They have actually no interest. But because of social necessities, it's a shame if a girl is not married at certain age. The parents have shame. So they forced her to marry and all that, And but I will say, don't marry if you don't have a legitimate need. God's will for marriage is known by the need for satisfying your sexual feelings. See, if you have a very burning person, then get married. So people ask sometimes the question, how can I know whether it's God's will for me to marry? So I ask them some questions, Yes, I think that you should marry. And somebody who doesn't have this need should not marry. Actually I had a cousin, I still have a cousin. He had no sexual need. He was such a godly man. Never seen a more godly man than him. Never in my life. And finally he got married. When I heard he was marrying, I knew that. He said, it's going to be a tragedy. This man had no sexual need, so the girl he married was above average sexual need. You think of that. So finally she ran away with one of his disciples. The whole year I had counseled both of them, and she said first 12 months he had relationship twice by her force. And he will say, I have no need for such things, they are dirty things, I won't do it. Why did you marry? See, this is a problem. So for God's sake I say that don't marry if you don't have a need. Why destroy the life of somebody else? But on the other hand, if you have a need, you must marry. Otherwise you will be burning and running around causing problems. If not for others, for yourself. Your conscience and all, homosexuality, masturbation, this, that, fantasizing, this, that, so many pornography. There's so many ways people use for satisfying their sexual feelings, and should not be involved in those things. Why? You need. God has established marriage. You have any question on that? If not, let me go forward, because 5 o'clock I have to stop. Okay, somebody knows that it is God's will for me to marry. Oh, right. Now the question is, how do I know whom to marry? How do I know whom to marry? First of all, I will say this. You should not say that it is God's will for me to marry somebody who has a bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, somebody who is fair, somebody who is, from a rich home. No. Anybody who is making such conditions, I won't marry only a Malayali, I won't marry a non-Malay, I won't marry a Malayali, I won't marry somebody from the south, I won't marry somebody from the north. Such statements you should not. What will you do if God wants you to marry somebody who is not a Malayali? You should say that, Lord, whomsoever you have chosen for me, I will marry, but you have to show me very clearly that's the person. You should never say that I will marry only so and so, because it may be God's will for you to marry somebody else. When people make such things, their marriage is going to be very difficult. Why? Because they may be talking against God's will. This is a problem. Sometimes it's very difficult. One of my daughters is married to a person from Kenya. He's a Kenyan. Actually, his mother met my daughter in an international students meeting. So asked my brother also, who was in America, and my son was also, asked my brother, with whom she was saying, will you give her in marriage to our son? What? So he said, I cannot decide, I will ask my brother. So he called and said that, there is a lady, there are believers, asking this question. Well, my wife and I said that, we were not really excited about that one, but what we will say the reason. So we asked a lot of questions. He's a born-again believer? Yes. He's a godly man? Yes. He's a gentleman? Yes. So many, for them all, yes. Then my son said, Dad, except for the color. He's a gentleman. He's a godly man except for the color. If you have a problem with the color, I, being a Christian, could not say I have a problem with the color, because I never believed in it. That one. Though I was reluctant, to be honest, because I was fear that separate background and all, whether the marriage will. So I asked my daughter, said, if you are willing, then I have no problem. If you are not willing, then I won't. Well, so I said to my son and my brother, if you both feel that he is a godly man, and except the color, everything is okay, you said, only on the basis of color I will not say no, because I have to stand before God. So the marriage took place, and they are happy. So what I mean is, you can never say that I will not give my daughter to, or my son. No, I will not say that. If that's a person God chooses, that's a person. It's not for me to decide that. When people say things like that, I'll marry only a fair looking girl, I will marry only somebody from this part of this country or that part of this country, somebody who is this one. You don't say that, then you are making things very difficult. You will end up probably marrying somebody that God may not have chosen. That's a problem. You only have to say that if it is God's will, I have no problem. I must be convinced that that's God's will. So our question is, how are you going to get convinced? That's the question. Okay, I will give you some help in this matter. Number one, the proposal should not be with a person that the Bible prohibits. Biblically, there should be no prohibitions. A believer cannot marry a non-believer. So if the proposal comes from a non-believer, your answer will be definitely no. That's definitely no. And the Bible simply says only in the Lord. What does that phrase only in the Lord means those days when Paul wrote it? We have to understand there were no denominations, nothing, only the local churches were there, the church at Corinth, church at Ephesus. In the first century, and the scriptures were written. So what was in the mind of Paul when he said only in the Lord? Somebody who got saved but not going to church? Somebody who is saved but not baptized? Such thought cannot come. So spiritual compatibility is what he means. Somebody who is saved, somebody who obeys the Lord, who is in the church, that sort of. So I will say that have spiritual compatibility. That's the only condition actually the Bible makes for a marriage. So when a marriage proposal comes, your first question will be exactly that. Is there spiritual compatibility? Means, is that person saved in the true sense, loves the Lord, loves the word, loves the church, that sort of thing. You may not be in this church, you may be in that denomination, but you may be marrying somebody from that denomination. That's a different matter. But spiritual compatibility must be there. You don't expect somebody who is born again, baptized and fellowshipping in a local church to be going and marrying somebody who is not, only made a confession, but the other things are missing. You don't expect that. So that you have to make sure. The spiritual compatibility. Now that's very easy to establish that, in a sense, not always easy. Most of the young people, when they go to see the bride seeing, bride seeing, what do they ask? Biryani undakariya. You know how to make biryani. Seems like he's going to marry biryani girl. Cooking. Oh, what stupid questions you are asking. What's the purpose of seeing the girl talking? You are talking to see whether there is compatibility. Discern whether it is God's will. All those who make biryanis are... So I sometimes ask people, what did you ask? After the boy goes, I asked her, what did he ask me? He asked me all these things. Somebody even asked, how many children you want? She said, is that a question that I alone decide? Strange people, aren't they? They are not the important questions. God gives the children. You may not have children. You may like it, you may have children, you may not have children. Or you may have 6 children in one birth. You may want only one. What will you do? Kill all the other? Usually that happens only when you take hormones for ovulation. So the ovulation happens, 6 ovums come out, then all of them fertilize. That's usually happens. Otherwise, naturally only twins or triplets. Usually it doesn't go beyond that. So you need to ask important questions to find out God's will. Yes. The help of the elders in the church, senior brothers in the church, sometimes very, very necessary. Because in bride seeing you may ask few questions only. And interestingly tell you, if she is not godly enough, she will give you exactly the answer you want to hear. Yes. Oh, I am so interested in the Lord's word. I am also. Soul winning I have a burden. Oh, that's the burden I also have. I can never overcome, man, saying stories won't go. Anyway, this is a girl from a different background, the boy was from our background, and she got saved by their, and she wanted to marry, and she started coming to our church every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Friday. About, how far, 30 kilometers. She'll take pain, she comes. Then she got baptized. And all that. All right, everybody gave the impression she was genuine, interested in things, because nobody will tell. She comes from actually a Martha background, and she is coming all the way to the church and 30 kilometers away and all that. So the marriage took place. After marriage, she came one Sunday, and the next Sunday she came and said, I came all that for marrying this man. I'm not born again, don't worry about me. I'm never going to come to the meeting. I wanted to marry, I married. That's it. So cool, she's told me. And 6 months she came for every meeting. You think of that. She spoke the language, everything, whatever he said, yes, that's exactly what I want. And then she's saying that I said I was acting all those things because I wanted to marry this guy. And I married it. Now they are not going anywhere church. Say, I don't want to go even Martha church or no church. I'm not interested in things like that. So what I said is sometimes they speak the language, so it's so deceptive. It may be very difficult too. But the only comfortable thing is the boy was also not very spiritual. He was born again, so-called baptized, but that's all. Otherwise he's... So, it's okay. I mean... So you need to find out, that's God's will. How to find out? You have to ask questions. Suppose 5 proposals came, all 5 are born again, baptized in the same spiritual compatibility, they all love the Lord. You can marry only one. All 5 you cannot. So the question is, which one is God's will? That's very difficult. So we usually say that you proceed with one, you cannot proceed with all 5. It's unethical also. It's unethical. You proceed with one proposal, you finish it. Either if it is God's will, then go ahead, marry. Otherwise, drop it. Say final. Then only. If I find out that anybody is handling 2 proposals, if it's my daughter, I say, sorry, we are not interested. In this bull business, we are not. You go into the market, you look at that cow and you look at this cow and, then decide which cow to take. No, I'm not interested. So if a green light, red light principle there, you are interested in this girl and you went and talked with her father, they said, no, we are not interested. Sorry, Okay, you accept it's God's will for you not to marry that. Don't try to break open the door. But people do that, people do that. They send somebody else related to them, putting pressure. No. If it's God's will, it will. And suppose they said yes, you went and talked with her and all that, then you found out that compatibility is not there, spiritual compatibility maybe, but no personality compatibility, no temperamental compatibility, and he said, the Lord showing very clearly that this marriage is not my will because you will have only problems. And he said no. So if all the way it goes, just like Eliezer went to fetch a wife for Isaac. He didn't conclude it was God's will until the last answer when the girl said, yes, I go. There were clear light, green light, green light, green light, and then came a yellow light. You know what? Was not sure it will get from yellow it will turn to red, or from yellow it will turn to green. That's when the family said, let the damsel stay with us for 10 days, because unexpectedly the proposal has come. We were not prepared for this marriage. And it's going far away. We will never see our sister again, daughter again. This is the last time. And they never saw her again. 1,200 miles, it's a long distance. So then they called the girl and asked, because the man insisted immediately we are leaving, not even 1 day staying. Because I'm sent for a mission and I wanted to accomplish it. So the girl said that, you do go with this man? Yes, of course. I liked Rebecca because, she said, this is God's will for my life to be this man's wife, then why should I stay around here? So she went away. That was God's will for them, right? So always this one, if some proposal come from any background, any person, you don't know, you pray to God, Lord, I don't know whether this is God's will or not. It doesn't matter to me, black, white, yellow, blue, tall, short, that's not the consideration. There's a physical compatibility there, I'm not saying it should not be. All those things, yes. But then after talking, you are convinced that no, this is not the man, it's not the man. His values are different, my values are different, and all those questions, But if all the way you have this green light, then marriage proposal came, you all liked, but you talked with the elders and they said that we don't think this marriage is good. Why? Because you have no compatibility. We know that person, his values are different. We talked with him. He wanted to marry this girl, maybe a nurse, maybe this, that. He told us that the only reason he is preferring a nurse is because he wanted to send her to Kuwait and make her work and get money, And your desire is not that. No, you wanted to just marry and stay with your husband and raise up a family and serve the Lord. So you don't go for this, The values are not the same. Some people even will say that, no problem, you don't have to go. Oh, that's all, we will discuss later. That means danger. Let us first marry, then we will discuss that. So, the green light, red light is a way out. First you have to make sure that you don't break any scriptural principle. The Bible gives you the green light because all that the Bible requires is there. Now the question is, whether this is the particular person God has chosen for you. So these matter again, green light. And you talked with your parents and they object sometimes, but then you ask why you object, Dad? What's wrong with that girl? Well, because our background is different. She is a convert from this, and that and this. I say, forget about it. That's not what I want to know. What I want to know is there compatibility, personality compatibility, is there temperamental compatibility, is there education compatibility, or the three compatibility most important is spiritual, personality and temperamental. Don't make compromises on that. But other social compatibility and physical compatibility, and all these educational compatibility, they are not that important. Though if you get everything, okay, but who will get everything? The joke by Chrysostom, the metropolitan of Marthoma Church is a famous, one day a Marthomite father came to Chrysostom, said, Tirumeni, my son needs a wife. So what's the problem? Marthoma Church got plenty of families and girls. No, that's not what. Want a beautiful girl. Oh, there are plenty of beautiful girls. They must be from aristocratic family. Oh, what do you think that Marthoma Church, we don't have aristocratic family? We all have. But then a lot of money also I need to get. That's no problem. We got plenty of rich, and said that the character should also be excellent. So he said, if you think there was a girl like that, you think I would remain like this? putting on the saffron cloth and this. I have gone and married a long time back. So you won't get somebody perfect in every case. Somewhere you have to make a little bit adjustment. There is no question about it. You cannot make compromise on spiritual compatibility, no. You cannot make a compromise on personality compatibility and the temperament and the value system and all those things. You can make compromises on education and the social background may not be from the same background and all those things you can make, because they are not the most important thing. When two people decided to love each other and live together, they are not going to always think about what background. Even the physical comparative beauty is no problem, People say my wife is beautiful, I don't know, but I never realize she is beautiful or not. You don't think about it, No. For me that was no. Actually, I agreed to marry her without seeing her. That's the truth. Our engagement, only after engagement I saw her. Because I was convinced beyond doubt this is the girl God has chosen for me. That's the reason I said no, I don't have to see her. I'm convinced. Do I look like that? Well, I got 5 children, man. No. See, I didn't say it, but you prepare yourself. What is to prepare yourself? I say that a normal marriage, the people with, by the time you are 13, 14, 15-year-old, you know whether you have sexual feelings or not. And if you grow up in the right home, you know that you have to marry. So your parents will say that, okay, this is time for you to start praying. You spend almost 2 years, 3 years praying for yourself. Lord, create in me, make me a biblical man. Those virtues. Every day, morning, evening, you pray. Show me my weak areas. Deal with me in such a way that I will be this, leadership ability, all the thing we've said about man. That 3 years depends upon when you start praying. If you start praying at 25, you don't have 5 years to pray for, Yeah. If you start praying when you are 13, 14, you definitely can pray 3, 4 years on that for yourself. Then the rest 2, 3 years you pray for the future bride or the future groom. Lord, whomsoever you take, make that person a biblical man or a biblical woman. I want you to deal with that person. Then you pray for a couple of years. Lord, now I want you to, bring that person into my life, the proposal and all that. I want you to bring it and all that, So if you have been praying for that, I had the privilege, because when I was only 17 or 18 years old, I think 18, maybe 18, years old, I befriended a very godly man, whom I respect even now. A very godly man. We were very friends. He was in his 60s, I was only in 18, 19-year-old. So, we used to go for, he didn't belong to even to I was at that time brother, and he didn't belong to the Brethren church, another church. But we were we go together for evangelism and also. He one day asked me, very affectionately, these questions. So you ever think you will marry? You have such feelings? Yes. Then I have an advice. You must spend at least 5-6 years prayer, consistently, then only you marry. So I asked, what should I pray? So he told me, first you pray for yourself. God will prepare you. He will deal with you, interfere in your life. He will, prepare you. Then you pray for the future bride. Then you pray, God bring. So I prayed that prayer, and then to be honest with you, I had 17 proposals. I said no. My father was so angry. I didn't go to see any girl. I ask 10-15 questions and father say, no, I don't know. No, I don't think that. Then so forget about it. And this came and I asked the question, and every answer is yes. I said, that's the girl God has chosen for me. So you can go ahead and engage, even my presence is not there. Sir, you don't want to see? No, I don't have to say, I already seen her in my mind. So, if you pray and ask consistently, God, not for a BA girl, not a beautiful girl, not a fair girl, not this rich girl, that's not your prayer. You say, then I want the girl you have chosen for me, so that we could serve the Lord and love you. Is God going to play with you? Is God a buffoon? A comedian? No. People take marriage very lightly, therefore they suffer. So I had the confidence. That's why I said, I tell you, 45 years, I never had to look back. Never had to look back. Neither my wife nor I. So I will say, pray, pray. God. But when you pray, don't pray to give me a rich man, and he must be tall and beautiful and fair. She must be tall and beautiful, and the dowry of this much money. And Lord, the only daughter of a rich man. And so the church also, please pray for my marriage. I want a godly woman. What do you mean by a godly woman? That's when the Lord cannot answer your prayers, then you go through all sorts of. Some people will go and find a girl somewhere and then start praying for her. Lord, I want you to get that girl for me. Oh well, what a misery for God. He has to now work out all the details so that, this sort of don't take marriage very seriously. I honestly believe marriage should be taken very seriously. God loves you. God wants you to be married and be happy. Raise up a family for God's glory. So God's will is not known because when you looked, you had a feeling. Some say that I know she is the wife. Why? Because I don't know, brother. When I look at that girl, I have kind of special feelings. Then that's not the girl for you. Because why this feeling comes? Don't marry, say that I have no feelings. Well, don't marry. If you have normal feelings, then marry. Anything abnormal is not good. So that's how you find out God's will, first from the Word. Then you always talk with your parents, with the elders, with other people who love. Take their advices very strongly. If they all think that this is the man or this is the girl, we like her very much, I'm sure that she will make a good wife or he will make a good husband. You need to consider that, definitely. Definitely you need to. Some people say that, one says, I don't want to marry from the same church. Why? I don't have feelings. I see every Sunday. I said, well, so for next 20 Sundays you sit outside and don't look at it. So after 20 Sundays you can marry. You see how people say that, they know God's will? Very strange, very strange. That's not the way to, Same church, same village. Some say that, it's too far, brother. It takes 10 hours to go there. So that's how you find the God's will. So Isaac made the wrong, because he never went back. He went back. That's not the way. People say all this, we want our daughter to be near us, just 2 hours, Well, then there are plenty of boys, 2 hours. Just go pick up somebody. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Honestly, tell the Lord, I will marry whomsoever you will choose for me. Then the Lord will bring the right person. Sometimes you have to maybe pray a little more, Once there was a man, lady, she was in her 30s, not married, and she was concerned, very much concerned. So she was told by her pastor, not her, but commonly said, you be specific about your prayer request, then only God will answer it. Don't. So she is in her 30s and decided, so she went to a men's store bought a nice blue jeans and a shirt, and yeah, kind of 34 maybe by 33, and a shirt 42, 44 size shirt. Lady spread it on her bed and kneeled before that and said, Lord, I'm told that my prayer has to be specific. I pray that you give me a man to whom these things fit as if custom made. So she prayed every day, she prayed, and then she will fold it and put under the bed and she'll go. And a proposal came in few weeks, and marriage took place, and she gave this as a gift, and it fits perfectly. See? So he shared the testimony in the church. So there was a young man who was in 30s also. So he also wanted to be specific. So she went to a female lady shop, and bought a few items. He went a little further. Spread everything there, the skirt, the blouse, the lingeries inside once and everything, and knelt down there, and then he got up and went away to the office without folding them up. His mother came in to sweep his room and found they are spread like a woman, Said, my God, what is happening? Did he go eccentric or something, mentally or something? So he called the pastor and said, Pastor, this is terrible. This morning I walked into my son's room, and there the skirt and the blouse and the inside lingeries and all that, and there's all spread like this. What is it? He's a mental patient or something? So the pastor said, No, don't worry. That's a result of a testimony last week. Anyway, the story is, you be specific, but don't do exactly that. But be specific, be specific. Say that you want a godly man, you want a man who loves the gospel, some people will say that I want a man who loves the word of God and can preach the word of God. My wife prayed for that. I asked my wife, what did you pray? Only prayed one item. I want a man who can preach God's word. I said, you got then one. That's all it goes. Your prayer is when something that pleases the Lord, that God is happy to give you more than. Look, Solomon, he asked for wisdom. What did God say? He said, because you did not ask this and this, other kings asked, you asked for wisdom. I give you not only wisdom, but I give you all the other things. He did not ask, but God, Solomon did not use them wisely, the God-given wisdom. He violated everything God said not to do, he did it. That was God's. So, pray. Prayer is a very valuable item. So, prayer, be sincere about prayer. Don't take prayer lightly. Pray to God, be specific, study the Bible. Now you know what are the characteristics of a godly man. So, you pray over those matters. You pray for you first, yourself. Lord, I have these weaknesses, I want you to create these virtues in me, I am not submissive girl, I am a very, very strong-willed, and I don't want to submit to anybody, but make me submissive. I want to be a biblical woman. And you pray over these matters, and Lord will slowly work these matters, things in your life, and then you pray for, if you're late, then don't first pray for you only, but pray for both. Pray for you and pray for the other thing. Couple of years you pray, and if you're very late, then pray for a couple of months, I will say that, because you didn't have the opportunity of probably listening these or getting these advices early. I had the privilege, God bless me with that one, so we told that to our children and all that, you must be praying, and then only you should be marrying, the Lord bless them all with the good husbands and good wives, and thank God for that, this is, marriage doesn't happen by accident. You ask for it, you get it. God will give the best to God's children who ask for it. But your values are wrong, you will harvest. You are sowing now, later comes the harvest. Sometimes the harvest comes only in the children's generation, because children are a reward. Yes. So reward means that something you have done, right? So sometimes. So to get good children, good family life, you need to pray. This is how you accept God's will. So never say this, no, because he is of this one. Don't make, a list of things that are not biblical and then say that this is the man I want. He has to be this, he has to have this job, he must make this much money, he must be from such family, his color should be this, his height should be that. The Lord is not pleased with any of those. God has good men who are short, good men who are tall, good men who are black, good men who are fair, good girls who are fair, good girls who are really dark, good girls who are short or tall, good girls who are slim or who are not slim. God has all these. God is not looking at the external. Remember when Samuel wanted to make the elder son of Jesse the king, God said, Samuel, you look at the external. I looked inside the heart. The man with my own heart coming. And he was short and rude. Samuel was not happy at it. Make him king. He stands shorter, for a meter than anybody else in Israel. Samuel liked Saul because at look only, Saul was quite a king. Everybody loved him. But he was not a man. So, don't make such things, but submit yourself to God and say that whatever, Lord, you gave. After all, the purpose of my marriage is to please you, to glorify you. So lead me into green waters, please. I don't want to make mistake. I only have one life, and I have given this life to you. I want a godly family. I'll pay any price for that. But please, I want a good family life. You think God won't listen to it? But when our motivations are carnal and sexual and monetary and all those things, God is saying, look, that person is, doesn't have Christian values. So, I'll encourage you also to pray for your marriage. That's all the time I have. It's 5 o'clock. Find God's will for you. For God is a gracious, good God. He will bless you with good partners if your intentions and motivations and purposes are good. If there is problem in this area, then you will suffer for it. You cannot never blame God. He always reserves the best for people who love Him and people who obey Him. That's God's promise. All right, you have some questions? Anybody? No question?
What about age compatibility?
Age compatibility. Well, in India, traditionally people think that the bride should be younger than the groom. That's the general trend. Biblically, you cannot say that they are same age because Adam and Eve were created the same day. 6th day, afternoon, so how many hours difference? So you cannot say that much. Well, I don't know. I will say that age is not a very important criteria. No. But look is a little more, in the sense that you look so young and she looks so old, Well, people will think that, they are not husband and wife, they are... I am 5 years older than my wife, but I don't age. She aged much better, much longer. I mean, she looks a little older than her. She has gray hair, and I don't have. One day my wife and I were going, and there was a bunch of children. It's a strange place. We are visiting somebody and then going. There 6, 7 children were playing there. So one of them come, they all looked and said, Amme monu kude evide poyirikayirunnu. We laugh, we make, So we, for the rest of the day, we laughed and said that, what I meant is, if age is a criteria, she looked very young when she married, but now she all grey hair and all. That's not what makes, I don't want her to, change the color. I said, no, it doesn't matter to me, I want you to be natural, what difference that makes. But the externals are not the values, for me that's not the values. It's, I haven't married her for others. I married for me, and she is a good wife to me, and good mother to my children, good mother-in-law to my daughter-in-law and son-in-law, and good grandmother to my grandchildren. So what more you want? A godly woman who pray for me, who submit to me, who love me. I'm very perfectly happy with her. So what the grey hair will do? That's it. What the grey hair will do? Nothing. For me, that's a blessing, isn't it? Yes. So that's not the most important. So age is not. I say if there is compatibility in every area, if she is a little older by maybe 6 months, a year, just don't refuse to marry only because of that. That's my advice. That's not the most important thing. No. But if you don't have any other area also, it's only a marriage based upon infatuation, then don't. But usually, I have the first marriage I conducted, she was a missionary in China for years, and he lost his wife of cancer in second marriage, but she was about 5 years older than him. That's the first marriage I conducted. And both of them were about 10-15 years older than me. So I married them. They were Americans. I married them, and they were happily marrying, living. They were in their late 60s and 70, at that time. So what's the most important thing, So age is not the most important thing, no. But generally speaking, the man will be older. That's generally speaking. 99% of marriages will be the man is older. That's natural. Then come some situations where, as I said, she doesn't look older, though certificate will say that she is a year older or so. But she is godly woman, compatible in every area, and there is everything. But only on the basis of this date in the certificate, you don't want to even refuse. Oh no, don't do that. Any other question? Anybody?
When suppose two persons are in love relation, and later one of them come to faith, and what kind of advice would you give? Because they already agreed for marriage.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Depends upon the extent of involvement or they have, That's extent of involvement. And one of them came to faith, and the other is, averse to faith. Like one became Christian, the other is a strong Hindu. Well, you definitely don't want to encourage that because, but they were involved in more than just love relationship and all that, Yeah, there's a promise given, is known to everybody, and nobody else will marry her if the marriage is broken off. There's situations like that. It's a very difficult situation, but he almost married her, especially if they had some physical relation also, then, there is no question. But, talk with them. How important is her faith or his faith, the party who came, and say that I will not marry now, I will wait until he or she gets saved. Some will say that, now I know that I'm a believer, I can marry only a Christian, but I have already committed, so I will not marry anybody else, but I will pray God will convert him and save him, and then I will marry and all that. That we don't know whether that's going to happen, because but you can share the gospel with them and all. I don't encourage such marriages, but I cannot always discourage either. Because situation is like that. If everybody knows, if one party calls off, the girl's relatives may manhandle him, and the problem, because the whole families know that. Say, you have destroyed my daughter's or my sister's life. You promised, and you were did this, did that, and all these things. You have returned this much photos, and we have this much letters and all. Now you say no, that they will go police case and this case and all, and you don't want to be the man who will say stand against that marriage. So the commitment has to be honored. It's difficult situation, but
What about some marriage where things get so difficult between husband and wife that they are not able to live together? So, and they are Christians and they cannot even divorce.
so you gave the answer.
So
They cannot live together, they cannot divorce.
yeah, so is just a separation kind of thing okay?
Well, depends upon what are the issues. You will allow sometimes temporary separation. Separation is always with the view of reconciliation, counseling and reconciliation. Separation is never with the view of divorce later. No, divorce I don't believe in. But this one, sometimes certain reasons, issues there. If they live together, they fight, physical hurting and all that. So you sometimes recommend temporary separation while both come for counseling and that sort of. But if they both are Christians, then I think there is no question of divorce anyway. It depends upon what it's a hypothetical case, And so in a situation like that, suppose one is having HIV, not because of evil conduct, but because of maybe receiving blood or something, one has HIV, I will say live together, live together, Yeah, HIV is not that easily contagious, no. Even their sexual relationship could be, they can conduct with their, using condoms and other things and all that. HIV doesn't fly and get you, Eating together or sleeping together, you don't get HIV, So I won't recommend a separation there for that one. But if this is one of them start beating the other one and the physical abuse, I don't want any husband to beat their wives. No physical abuse. Nobody has the right to abuse their wives. So if that sort of, then I will recommend temporary separation on the condition of, counseling. Because
we know one couple where they're very poor people. So when the girl was sort of believer, the parents got her married to unbeliever. And after marriage, we came to know that this is his fourth marriage.
Oh my goodness. And all the other three wives are living.
All are living and he drinks and beats.
If the wives are living, this marriage is not valid. How can this marriage be valid? Because we don't believe in polygamy.
And they have a child also.
They have a child also. A child was born, by illicit relationship almost. So he must pay for both the child's maintenance and the wife's maintenance, but no sexual relations. Even if all four wives get saved, that's what I say. You keep the first wife. For all the other three wives, you provide maintenance, but no living together, no physical relationship. That's what I will recommend.
The Indian context, there's non-profitable demands from parents. Sometimes they would ask, the children would face like, why not you look for the family status, why not you look for the education background? So is it worthy to take a strong stand, although it seems non-profitable, against our parents?
Well, interestingly, there are a lot of well-qualified, well-employed girls who are also spiritual, right? You don't have to conclude that all educated people are not spiritual. So you will say that you will list your demand. I want first of all this and this and this. You can find a girl who has this plus the ones you demand. I'll wait for one year for you. If you don't bring, then I'll proceed. Reasonable. My demands are that she must be born again, baptized, and this and that and that. Then there should be personality compatibility and this temperamental compatibility. You want rich, I have no problem. You want from a big family, I have no problem. But having these three, then bring the other one. It's your responsibility. I will wait for you. Graciously wait for 1 year. So you go find her. I will decide whether she has the first three I said. You decide whether she has the other three, you decide. So, you cannot assume that all rich people are not spiritual people. Oh, they are rich people who can pay 2 crores or 5 crores dowry, or, we don't believe in dowry. I said, oh, rich people there are. And there are very well rich and educated, people, even IAS people, who are godly, and, that. So we cannot conclude that all poor people are spiritual and all rich people are unspiritual. That we cannot. So, that's what I will say. Oh, right, I'm very happy. Oh, I'll be very excited to have such a girl who also got this. So, I can make compromise on this. You cannot make compromise on that? Fine. You are my parents. Bring the girl. That's what I say. So after 1 year, they couldn't bring anybody like that. So you tired of looking for? Then I'll go ahead and marry people who got these 3. Others may have, may not have. You have to accept them. Yeah. What else you do?
Suppose 2 people are decided in a godly way for marriage, then what is the role of the engagement and marriage?
Yes, I wanted to talk about that. I will also briefly talk about, yes, in the small time frame I will talk about that also, the making of a marriage. The making of a marriage, that's very, very important. How you make the marriage. A marriage does not happen automatically, there are some stages to it, at least 4 stages to marriage. Okay, sorry, the first 5 steps to marriage. The first one is, I said, getting ready to marry. Prepare yourself by prayer and all. Assume that that's over. The second is finding your partner. Now, partner is also found. In finding the partner, parents will be involved, uncles will be involved, elders will be involved. Different people will be involved. Though it is the man's responsibility to find the wife, it is the father's responsibility of the bride to find the groom. Yes. The bride has to agree. She cannot marry anybody he brings. But the girl, the woman is not supposed to go and find. Her father is supposed to, if the father is a believer and all. If the father is not a believer, well, he will bring only unbelievers. So naturally cannot be accepted. So the elders sometimes have to step into. But if the parents are believers, then it is their, responsibility. But as for the man, it's always the man's responsibility, though others will help. Others will help. Others can propose and all that things, but ultimately the decision to marry or not marry is done by the man, not by the relation. So once that is over, you found your partner, then the third step is fixing the marriage. Some call it engagement, some call it betrothal, some call it Malayalam Ottukalyanam, some call it Manasammadam. It all means that Christian Marriage Act demands that at least 3 weeks in advance to the marriage there should be the engagement or the betrothal, and that betrothal will be announced in the church. 3 weeks. It's called the what they call them. Yeah. Yes, the marriage band should be announced there. If it is a registration, 3 weeks it has to be posted on the notice board there. Anybody who has an objection can bring that objection during that 3 weeks. After that, nobody can bring any objection. That's the rule. But if you don't have those 3 weeks, usually there is a way of getting around, around, really not in a legal way of getting around, but people will, the man who officiated the wedding, he will make an announcement there. If there is anybody who has an objection in conducting this marriage, speak now or keep silent. And before they have time to say that, okay, your silence is accepted, so he proceeds. But there are some crooks who will say, raise their hands, I have objection. Well, then until that objection is taken care of, you cannot proceed for the marriage. What that objection only, depends upon the man. So it's always better to have the wedding band properly, announced and thought. Anyway, I recommend that between the engagement and the marriage, there is a reasonable period of time. Reasonable period. I don't want to say how much, but a reasonable period. We, for our children, always gave 6 months at least. When the proposal came, said, if you are in a hurry, go ahead, marry somewhere. We are not in a hurry. We want plenty of time for our children to get to know each other. After engagement only, they will phone call and talk to each other and all that, with the approval of the both parents. The reason is we didn't want our children to enter into a marriage where they are strangers. No, we didn't want it to. We on our side will check out everything, and what they need to be, they did, but there is a get to know. So the engagement is a step. The fourth step is the actual wedding. And now let me go back and say that before the engagement, finding your partner and saying a final word, okay, the elders of the church must be told, the elders of the church must interview the partner and verify spiritual compatibility. If they are not given that opportunity, then don't ask the church to officiate the wedding, because church is not going to marry somebody whose spiritual compatibility is not determined by the church. That's the only thing church has to do. They don't have to look into anything else. The spiritual compatibility is a first marriage. They're born again. They have spiritual values same, faith and all these things. One of the elders or a couple of the elders should go and interview the girl or interview the boy, whatever is the case. And then, they come and tell them that you can proceed. Or we don't think you can proceed. The church cannot officiate this wedding because we are not convinced she is born again or he is not born again. No spiritual compatibility. Sometimes they put church in a awkward position because they give the word and even they engaged. Then come and say that our marriage is engaged and on 22nd you had married. He said, marry whom? We didn't know anything about the marriage. No, we didn't. At the engagement, the representatives of the church must be there. Before engagement, date must be accepted from the... If the church is to officiate, church is not going to do it at your time, If church may have many engagement, many assignment, meetings, conventions, this and that. So they have to come and ask, we want a date for our wedding. Say that when you want. We want this in month of October. What part? Earlier better, sir. So we look at the calendar, church calendar, and say that what about 10th? What about 8th? Yeah, 8th will be fine. Okay, good. So, the church will mark. And then at the engagement there will be at least one representative of the church. You don't have to invite the whole church. The representative of the church means either the elders are there, one of the elders will be there. The elders have to tell there that we have no objection in conducting the marriage on 8th. Only with that one. That's all the church's responsibility in that one, Because my engagement is a family affair basically, Basically family affair. It's not necessary you have to have a preaching and all that in that one. It's not. We do all that thing, but it's not compulsory. But the marriage is conducted by the church. The ceremony part. The feasting and all that anybody conduct. Actually in Western world, the person who conducts the wedding usually won't stay for the feast unless he is specially invited. Pastor, I want you to definitely participate in the feast, otherwise he conduct the wedding and he will leave. There is an honorarium given. The honorarium always goes to the pastor's wife, not to the pastor. And that is one benefit of becoming the elder's wife or pastor's wife. If he gets many opportunity for conducting weddings, there will be an honorarium. He's supposed to take his wife to a nice 5-star restaurant, and buy food for her. Because people usually won't ask the pastor to stay and eat. Only on very personal relationship they will ask. And that's the Western. In our case, that's not the way. The person who conduct will be walking around everywhere, and until everybody eats, then come and get some food. usually that's the way. Nobody will ask you, come and sit. In other denominations, the pastor, the HN, they will all be in the front, but in our midst, nobody cares usually, So they usually have the leftovers. If there is any, they eat and they go. But that's fine, no problem. So the wedding is the responsibility. The spiritual ceremony is to be conducted by as the wedding. The bride and the groom can suggest if they have a favorite person to conduct something, but church doesn't need to agree, that's the discretion of the church. Sometimes they say that so and so led us to the Lord, and I would like, that brother, you have any objection, sometimes we oblige, sometimes we say sorry, we cannot do that, because of certain reasons, we don't agree with their doctrine at present or something, we cannot, have only a request. But usually that if somebody outside the church is to be invited to conduct the wedding, it is a church that must invite. If the bride and groom invite, we will not go, because it's not their business. They can call and say that, but say that the church will invite, uncle, that. It is because the marriage ceremony is the church's responsibility. So this person is coming and doing it on behalf of the church. So the church has to ask and, brother, will you be available to conduct this wedding? Otherwise, will not go. If a call from the responsible people of the church is not given, sorry, will not go. So that all formalities you have to make sure, definitely it's good to invite the whole church for the wedding feast and all that, but it's not necessary for the validity of the marriage. No. Because the church was not invited everybody, this marriage is not valid, you cannot say that, But the church has to conduct the wedding, definitely. So that's the actual wedding. Making the covenant, signing the record, exchanging the rings. I call exchange the rings because all over the world there is a sign for marriage. The Hindus have their signs. All over the world the Christian sign is the wedding ring. Not the this and that and no. So, that's since it is followed by everybody all over the world, except the Malayali brethren and Pentecostal people, Malayali, everybody else is doing it all over the world, So a married person should always have a sign of his, marriage. That I think is good. A church is the legal agencies to conduct this Christian wedding. You could have you could suggest who you want to conduct the wedding, but not necessary. The program also has to be made in consultation with the leadership of the church, who will be preaching, what songs will be sung and all. Church won't do it arbitrarily, they'll always, sit down and consult. But don't bring a program sheet and hand over to you. This is what we want. And then you look at it, oh no. So we have those, sometimes non-believers are invited to sing and they come with such a clothing and attire that the whole congregation is sitting there like this, boy, no, that cannot be, the church should approve those things. It should be neatly done. If the ladies are singing, they should have head covering, that sort of thing. It should not be somebody who has tattoos all around and, no, we are not unreasonable. Sometimes some people are very crazy, They're very modern now. Then the fifth stage is the stage of what we call the consummation. The consummation, is very important, as I already said, that the two shall become one flesh. It basically means also that they will bodily be joined to be one person. So step number 1 and step number 2 are most important in marriage, because that's where you prepare yourself, the prayer and all that, and finding the partner and all that. The other things are also legally, lawfully very important, that the engagement paper should be kept properly in the register or in a file, because in the future any court case comes about something, then the court may ask for the engagement paper and all those things, then you cannot say that it's all missing, we don't know what happened to it, that sort of. So the church should have a file where these things are kept. The records must be properly maintained, witnesses must be signed and all that. Nowadays the registration of the marriage is compulsory, so don't forget, for the registration you need the certificate issued by the church, and that certificate should also state very clearly somewhere, this wedding was conducted in such and such auditorium, signed by the person who conducts. Because some of the wedding marriage registers we have and the certificate we have don't have that printed. So don't forget to add that. Sometimes in some panchayat they want a letter from that owners of the auditorium, stating that this marriage was conducted in our auditorium in their letter pad. So don't forget to buy that if that is necessary. These are, otherwise you will be running around wasting a lot of time and all that. So this is the church's part, the church's part. And now concerning the receiving and taking money or this and that and all, the church has to make sure that no dowry is in exchange for this marriage and all that sort of thing. But how much you try, there is some money exchanged. So what to say about it? This sort of things. Okay, I think that I answered that. Premarital counseling, let me add one more verse. Legally it is not necessary now to have a premarital counseling for somebody to get married. But in our churches, we generally encourage premarital counseling, that is to avoid postmarital counselings. So, after the engagement, you should make time available for someone the church will appoint for premarital counseling. It's a church's responsibility to provide that counseling, especially if you are marrying from outside the church and all. Sometimes some people they don't have that system. So, there are superstitious belief that bride and groom cannot see before marriage and all this kind of things, So forget about those things. Counseling is compulsory. But I said if possible there should be a medical exam and all that. If that is the case, then it should not be after the engagement. It should be before the engagement. Actually, before word is given, they agreed and all that, then they should go for a medical examination, mutually agreed. There are medical doctors who are qualified for this special purpose. They won't be checking whether you got a heart and kidneys, but they will be seeing whether you got any health problems related to, and also any other problems that will legally make this marriage non-valid. So it's always good to have one. Actually, yourself can go and get so that I have no problem. Then you can boldly go. When somebody says, checking is, oh sure, why not? If you have not done it yourself, then you are fear and reluctant. Lord, any problem, find out, my life will be gone, have mercy on me. That sort of thing, you don't have it too. So these are some of the things anyway. Unless you have questions, I can answer. If not, I think some essential things I have shared. Yes.
One question, I don't
Yeah.
know the wrong person to ask you. Today set up he said like the passion, the desire, the burning to get married is much early. There's a big gap between.
Oh yes,
Right?
Yeah.
How do we deal with that? Because I think all youngsters have that difficulty now.
Very, very problem. Because of all the male hormones and female hormones getting into our bodies, the passions are triggered. And besides, our world advertises on, things and all kinds of things. You have the instant pills, for example, girls carrying, have relations and then swallow one of the pills and this and sort of, the world is advertising all these things. In a situation like that, it is very difficult for people to say that I will wait until certain. Besides, most of our young people, by the time they are 20, they have a B.Tech in IT and this and that, and they are making 1 lakh rupees to, this and also. What are you waiting for? That's the way it is. So most all boys in our midst are married by the time 24 or 25. If a girl is not given in marriage by the time 22, 23, she is going to stay. Why? Because there are no boys. Most all boys want at least 2 years difference. So if the girl is 25, at least 27, you don't have 27-year-old boys around. They're all gone married at 24, 25. So this is a problem. So I always advise sisters and parents, as soon as your daughter finishes a basic education, higher education could follow after marriage, given marriage. A 22-year-old girl has better chance of marriage than a 26, 27, 28-year-old girl. And come 29, 30, and then they get angry with the elders, and you people are not responsible. Why not proposing? And what are we? It's a marriage bureau or something? Church is not a marriage bureau. We sometimes take initiative because a girl alone came from the family and all her relations are unbelievers, so she doesn't have anybody to. So we may take, but if the overage, what happens? Many said, no, only after master's degree, only after this, only I work for 5 years and 3 years, and then they come and say, now I am ready, but where are the boys? The same answer that Naomi gave, even if I marry and have another son, he won't be old enough to marry you. So where are? If we go and preach the gospel, get somebody saved, and it's not easy. So I will say that if you plan for marriage, a girl should plan earlier marriage. And it's better for boys to wait a little longer, but because of these hormone problems and all that, I am not going to say that because then you cannot contain yourself. What will, I say. So this is practical problems. There is no immediate solutions for it. Yeah. You can also always take some what they call the kadka lehim or kadka vallam or something, and you can drink and control your passions, What else could I say? Yeah. Yes.
He's a believer, and he apparently married another believer.
Apparently married means in the marriage the apparency come, or the believing part?
No, after marriage he came to know that she probably was not really someone who knew the Lord, and they're both from the Marthoma church. Now the problem is that she has been unfaithful and she has gone away with another man. Now we don't know what to tell him. I mean, he's still married to her. They are not divorced, and he's a young man. He's only 33. So we don't know what to tell him.
Weep over him. It's very difficult because if she is already gone with another person, divorce simply means that he cannot marry anyway. I don't believe in remarriage. I'm a person. I'm very conservative, narrow-minded in that one. I don't believe in divorce or remarriage. I think a person ought to be extremely careful before he marries, who he is marrying and all that, and then establish a relationship. Divorce and remarriage are not for Christians, so it's very difficult. I sympathize with such people. But then sometimes he is paying for his carelessness, It's very difficult. But even if I don't agree, people go and marry. They are not waiting for my change of mind. No, they go and marry, and I take it as a sin, like any other sin. If they repent and come back, I'll receive them. But no leadership ministry will be given to them. They will be a member in the church, They cannot be elders or deacons or even preaching the word of God. That sort of leadership ministry will not be given. But God forgives every sin. Every sin God forgives. So this sin also forgive. But the church should not be encouraging divorce and remarriage. If you do that, then you will have to, face a lot of remarriage and divorces on that account. So, but people go. Church never have to sanctify a divorced person's marriage. They may go marry before the law and all. And anytime they come back to the church, they say they want, and you have to counsel them, talk with them, and show them that what they did is wrong, and they have to stand before the church and say that, I was wrong in doing it, but however I want forgiveness. So we'll forgive. We'll forgive. What else we'll do?
He has told her that he is willing to forgive and take her back, but now she is initiating divorce.
He is very generous. The Bible says that after becoming the wife of another man, she cannot come to the former husband. That's abomination. You know. That's the Old Testament. New Testament doesn't say, speak on these things, but I think these principles are valid, you know. If she didn't marry, but only, you know, living apart, then you can bring them anytime, counseling. But if she has already been living with another man, you know, so that's very difficult. He can forgive and marry, you know, take her back and all. That's his freedom, you know. But what the Bible says, I said. So this sort of things are very difficult. Okay.